This week to Thursday Night Football Player Props edition of the Propcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by DraftKings Sportsbook. Download the app now and use promo code SGP. New customers can score $200 in bonus bets instantly when they bet just $5 on football, only on DraftKings Sportsbook with code SGP. We're also brought to you by Game Time. Stack the tickets without the stress. Use promo code SGPN on your first purchase to save $20. Download the Game Time app and use promo code SGPN. We're also brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Play the Underdog Pick'em in college or NFL and win up to 20 times your money in one game. Use promo code SGPN at Underdog Fantasy for a 100% deposit bonus of up to $100. Finally, we're also brought to you by Hall of Fame Bets, the sports betting research platform for parlays, player props, and game lines. Download the Hall of Fame Bets app or visit hofbets.com and use promo code SGPN at 50% off your first month and start making smarter bets today. Welcome, everyone, to the Propcast, part of the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. It is Tuesday, September the 12th, currently 5:09 on the East Coast. Here to get into the Thursday Night Football player props for Week 2 between the Minnesota Vikings and the Philadelphia Eagles to kick off Week 2. And joining me, I got my non-sharp bettors here with me after our dud of Week 1. Hey, we're gonna take it. We're gonna take it on the chin. We're gonna address everything. We're here for that. We're gonna be transparent. But joining me, the motorsports king himself, the hardest working man in the sports gambling industry, it's Rod Villagomez. Rod, how's it going, my man?
Feeling like the Giants, Munaf. Feeling like the Giants. Threw a giant offer on the board. Just need to lick my wounds and, for the love of God, hope to do better this next week.
I think the good news is that there's only one direction for us to go up, is to go up after the debacle we had last Thursday to kick off the season. I think we mentioned this when we did the Week 1 Sunday player props that it was the first game of the regular season. It was only Week 1. We have a very, very long way to go. So hopefully we will definitely be turning the tide here. But also joining us, it's my main man, Chris. Chris, how's it going, my friend?
What's up, Munaf? I think Rod said it best, man. I feel like I say that all the time when I'm coming in after Rod, man. I feel like the Giants. We just got smacked. We didn't show up. You know, we are who they thought they were. It's like, no, I'm just kidding. We're not who they thought we were. We are much better than that, and we'll get back on track. You know, I think as we took some of those player props, I'm pretty sure a lot of the players that we bet on also probably thought that they didn't play as well as they would have. We saw a lot of unders, whether we're looking at team total unders, full game unders, players, receptions unders, yards unders. So we'll bounce back. It's a long season. We just one weekend.
Yeah, I think things also kind of changed with, I think after we recorded that the official news of Travis Kelce being out was announced, but I think we had already anticipated him being out. So that, again, we talked about this on Friday that I think the lack of depth at the wide receiving group for this Kansas City Chiefs is there's a Band-Aid put on that just because of how dynamic Travis Kelce is for that offense. And I think we saw how important he is to that offense on Thursday Night Football. Maybe it could have been some rust just because it was game 1, all the Super Bowl celebrations and the banner and all that in Kansas City. But look, again, we'll put that in the past. Like I mentioned, goldfish memory, gotta, forget about it, move on, and try to get back on track here. So Week 2, gentlemen, it's gonna be the Minnesota Vikings against the Philadelphia Eagles. Last year, these two teams matched up in Week 2 as well, but that was on Monday Night Football. But this year they match up on Thursday Night Football. And last season, the Eagles took care of business against the Vikings in that game, 24-7. Jalen Hurts had a pretty good game in that game as well. Justin Jefferson did his thing. Both A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith also did their thing as well. So a lot of offensive firepower in this game as far as the wide receiving group here when we talk about guys like I mentioned, JJ, who had a fantastic Week 1. Unfortunately for them, they fell short against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He went off for 150 yards, did Justin Jefferson. And the Eagles were able to get by the New England Patriots in Week 1 by the score of 25-20. So, gentlemen, let's just dive right into our player props here for Thursday Night Football. Rod, lead us off, my man.
Yes, sir. Well, I am going to go with an under. You'll very rarely hear me say that, but I am going to take an under. And in a surprising way, actually, I'm going to take Jalen Hurts. his rushing and passing yards are set at 299.5. So I don't think that Jalen Hurts is going to get to 300 yards it combined, passing and rushing, pardon me, in this game. And I say that for a couple of reasons. One, this is a Thursday night game. We know how historically low stats can be on Thursday night games, right? I mean, these turnarounds, these short turnarounds, and it wasn't as if Jalen Hurts is coming off a spectacular week one performance. Anyways, he had 207 combined yards against New England last week. That's the Patriots. I mean, that's a Patriots team that we figured the Eagles should stomp all over. Now, of course, they could be a lot like us and have some week one jitters, but I'm just saying that on a Thursday night, we don't normally see the stats turn around that spectacularly. Last season, 8 games under this prop for Jalen Hurts. We think of him throwing for 300, running for another 6,000, but it doesn't happen all that often. I mean, it was only 8 games last season that he was, or actually 9 games rather, that he was over that, but still had 8 games under this mark. And look, he's played in 2 Thursday night football games, and he started in 2 Thursday night football games. He has not hit this mark in either one of those games. Last week, Minnesota only allowed Mayfield 173 yards on 34 attempts for passing. Didn't rush very much anyway. So, yeah, again, I don't, it's not that he's not capable of doing it. I just don't think this Thursday is going to be the point where he gets to 300 combined yards.
Yeah, again, like, when we talk about these Thursday night football games, it's short turnaround, obviously for both teams, right? And then they get that extended rest after that. But I think even going back to last season on that Monday night football game, I was trying to find Jalen Hurts stats on Thursday night football because I wanted to either fade Jalen Hurts or get behind him on a rushing total here, but I just wasn't able to track it down. But like you mentioned there, Rod, at least in week one, not the greatest performance for him. At least we're not used to seeing from Jalen Hurts where any other given week where he would have, put up 300 plus yards combined passing or rushing. But I think that number one, like you mentioned, the short turnaround, I think is going to be a big factor in this game. I think we can see something similar to what happened last season on Monday Night Football between these two teams. But a lot of times when we think about these two teams, we think, okay, there's going to be a lot of points being scored, stats and player stats are going to go over. But last season, these two teams only combined for 31 points, and I think that there will be more of an emphasis on the defensive side of the football for both of these teams. And I know that the Vikings, you don't want to go down 0-2, so they're going to bring their best effort, at least on the defensive side of the football in this game. So I think that we might see a lot of running from the running backs of the group of the Philadelphia Eagles because, we talked about when we were doing the offseason pods and the division previews that backfield of the Philadelphia Eagles has 3 different guys that can, run the football for you. I mean, Rashad Penny was a healthy scratch last week in week 1, which I feel great about because I took the under on his full season rushing yards. Kenneth Gainwell was the feature back last week. He had 14 rushes for this Eagles offense. Before we got on, I did see a note that he did not practice as of Tuesday because he's dealing with a ribs injury. And you still have DeAndre Swift back there, right? So I think that there might be a rushing attack here for the Philadelphia Eagles against the Vikings here. But as far as Jalen Hurts goes, yeah, I think that in this game, it might just turn out to be where I don't think the passing yards may be there for him. The rushing yards may be, but again, I just don't think that he may get over this number of at least 300 passing and rushing yards combined here. Chris, any thoughts on Jalen Hurts?
Yeah, you kind of alluded to what I was going to say as far as like the Russian attack, right? Like I think last week it was 60-40, pass versus rush for the Philadelphia offense, and that's pretty consistent with what we typically see, right? Like you said, they have a trio monster back there in the backfield, and it may not have to be Jalen Hurts that's putting the ball through the air in order for this team to be successful, right? It could be we know what Kirk Cousins can do back there when he starts slinging that ball, and if a couple of them get tipped and picked off, then that's even less yards that he has to account for, and they can go up, they can get a big lead like they typically do, and they have in the past, and then you're kind of just sitting on the ball, right? We know that they typically take the air out the ball in the second half anyway. I think they only scored about 10 points, maybe less than 10 points per game last season because they did get out to those big leads. And this could turn into a shootout, or the Eagles defense could just come, show up like they typically do, and that could also lead towards, this under as well. So I like the pick. Rod going out on a ledge a little bit, but I like it.
Yeah, I think last season they were just so good in that first half, like you mentioned there, Chris. Especially in that second quarter, I think they were averaging anywhere from above 2 touchdowns in that second quarter. And again, they would take their foot off of the gas in that second half, where they had a monumental lead, where they just turn around, hand the ball off to one of their running backs, and try to milk the clock there. So maybe something similar that we see here in this Thursday night football game against the Vikings. Chris, take us to player prop number one, my friend. What do you got?
So I kind of alluded to it just a tad bit, but I'm also going quarterback, and I'm also going. It's not an under, but it's kind of similar. Give me Kirk Cousins to throw at least an interception, at least one interception for Kirk Cousins.
I have
Minus
that one
one
as
fifteen,
well.
I think is what I do. You okay? Minus
Yeah.
115 over on Barstool. So if we just look at Kirk Cousins, I think I looked at him a couple different ways. So first, I looked at him in games last year where they were dogs, because I figured Vikings high power offense. If they're dogs, then clearly they're playing against a pretty good defense. So and he had 5 total interceptions last season in 4 games when he was a dog, including 3 against this same Philadelphia
Yep.
Eagles defense, of course, in their most recent matchup. And if you go back and just look at his career, all the way back to his Washington days when they were considered the Redskins and weren't even the Commanders yet, this guy has actually thrown 10 career interceptions versus the Eagles. I'm sorry, he in those 10 games he's thrown 7. So that's 70% hit rate right there. We could use that. You look at the Eagles, this is what I kind of alluded to already. They scored 296 points in the first half in those games last season, which was the 7th most actually in NFL history. So last week they come in and they pick up right where they left off, 16 points in the first quarter. Look, just like they did, formidable, turning players over. And I think that'll, actually kind of benefit Kirk Cousins to being playing from behind. All it takes is a tip pass. The Eagles will be at home for their first home opener. So for all of those reasons, give me him to throw over. Also, best tackle. What's his name? Christian Darsaw, I think that's how you pronounce it. Considered day to day. May not play. Pro Football Focus has him listed as the second best tackle last season. I think he only gave up 3 pressures. So that's even less time that Kirk Cousins had to stand back there in that pretty pocket, and some more deflections, some more tip balls. Give me Kirk Cousins though, at least one interception. If Tampa Bay can turn them over, so can this Philadelphia defense.
Yeah, I mean, just talking about game script. Let's just say the Vikings get down 2 possessions in this game. That's just going to have to enable them to throw the football in this game. Will lead to more mistakes possibly made by Kirk Cousins. I had the same prop here as well as my quarterback prop was Kirk Cousins to throw an interception here. And again, I thought this was at a cheap price, especially even though it's at minus 115, minus 110. Definitely shop around. But again, he's played in 10 career games against the Philadelphia Eagles. Obviously, this goes all the way back to 2014, but he's thrown at least one interception against his Eagles team in 8 of those 10 games. And like Chris, you mentioned last season on that Monday Night Football game, he threw 3 interceptions against the Philadelphia Eagles defense. I know there's all that talk about Kirk Cousins in prime time and whatever the case might be. I didn't even consider that in this handicap, but I know that he's very comfortable at home in Minnesota, whether it's a primetime game or if it's not a primetime game. But you're going to be outdoors. It's a short turnaround week. You're going up against one of the better defenses in the entire National Football League. I know the secondary still has some question marks, but like you mentioned, if the secondary of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers can turn them over, I think that the Philadelphia Eagles can definitely get at least one interception off of Kirk Cousins in this game. So I'm with you. Also took Kirk Cousins to throw at least an interception in this game against the Philadelphia Eagles. Rod, any thoughts on Kirk Cousins' interception here?
Spoiler alert, I've got him coming up in one of my articles that I've got coming up with the exact prop. So the fact that both of you guys are on this makes me feel very good about the fact that I'm including it. Look, he threw 643 passes last season. That was 4th most in the league. He threw 14 interceptions, the 3rd most in the league. 8 games last season with at least 1 interception. You said it, Munaf. 7 of 10 that he's thrown against the Eagles. Yeah, this is definitely a spot where he's going to at least throw 1. He threw 3 the last time they played each other. So yeah. I think 1 is well within the realm of possibility.
All right, before we get over to round 2 of our player props, let me tell everyone about DraftKings Sportsbook. Football is officially back. We're in the full swing with another week of epic games, and who's got you covered on the action for every single one of them? That's DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. New customers can bet $5 on football and get $200 instantly in bonus bets. Nobody's missing out on the action this season. All DraftKings customers can take advantage of two new offers every game day this September. Get in on the NFL Week 2 action with DraftKings Sportsbook. Download the app and use promo code SGP to sign up. New customers can bet just $5 and take home $200 instantly in bonus bets only on DraftKings Sportsbook with promo code SGP. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details and state-specific responsible gambling resources. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. And we're also brought to you by Game Time. Game Time is a fast and easy way to buy tickets for all sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. With killer deals on last-minute tickets, their best price guarantee, you can stop stressing over the tickets and start getting hyped for the fun you're going to have. And I've personally used the Game Time app. They have some great features on the app. Like I mentioned, flash deals, last-minute tickets are always available. They're really easy to find and buy tickets for every kind of event in your area. But the best thing I love about their app is that you get the images of your seat views when you go in to buy those tickets for your particular event that you're going to buy tickets for. So you're not going to have any surprises when you get to that actual venue. Nothing in your way of getting the best view or any obstructions. No, you're going to know exactly what you're getting right in that app because they have that image in the app for you. Lowest prices are guaranteed. Event cancellation protection as well. Forget planning months in advance. Game Time has deals on tickets right up to the day of the event. Get exclusive flash deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater, and much more. The Game Time guarantee means you'll always get the best price. They're so confident that if you buy tickets for in the same row and the same seat or the same section for less somewhere else, they're going to give you 110% of the difference of that price. That's how confident they are in their lowest prices. So all I got to do is download the Game Time app, create an account, use promo code SGPN for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code SGPN for $20 off. Download Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, gentlemen, let's get into round 2 of our player props here. Rod, lead us off, my man.
All right, well, fine. My under fun was gone now, so I'm going to go back to the overs where I'm more comfortable. But I'm going to go with AJ Brown over 5.5 receptions. This one's coming in at -105. I get it that it seems like a slam dunk of a prop, right? But he only had 5 games last season with at least 6 receptions in it, so it's not necessarily as slam dunk. He gets a lot done with those receptions, yeah, but he doesn't necessarily get all that many of them. So for a guy like AJ Brown to not get at least 5 or 6 receptions seems a little bit odd, but that is the case. Although last week it feels like now they're realizing that you got to get the ball to AJ Brown. He had 7 receptions last week against New England, so I like the fact that they recognized this season that I think it's probably best to get him involved more in this game as well and take a lot less off of Jalen Hurts trying to run this ball. Go ahead and throw it to AJ Brown a couple more times. Good things are going to happen. So, like I said, it seems like a slam dunk for this when you think about it. Oh, yeah, it's only 6 receptions, but he doesn't get there very often. And really, last week, Mike Evans caught 6 balls from Baker Mayfield. That's not a combination you thought was going to get to 6 receptions last week, but they did. So the Eagles allowed at least one receiver to get 6 receptions last week against them. AJ Brown is the best receiver that the Eagles have. Arguably, I guess some could say Devonta Smith, but I still think it's AJ Brown. I think he's going to at least get 6. He got 7 last week. We're only asking for 1 less. So at -105, it's not necessarily juiced all that much. So give me AJ Brown over 5.5 receptions.
Yeah, I mean, when you talk about this Philadelphia Eagles offense, obviously it's Devonta Smith, it's AJ Brown, right? And again, like you mentioned, he's done it more times than not ever since he came over to this Philadelphia Eagles team. And again, last week for AJ Brown, I guess you would say he went up against a one of the tougher defenses. I know they're very defensive minded in New England, but again, he still had 7 receptions last week, 79 yards on 10 targets. So we know that him and Jalen Hurts are close. You know, they have that chemistry, they have that rapport. You know, this dates back to last season. He's going to be looking out for him as well. So at over 5.5 receptions for AJ Brown, definitely can get behind this for sure. Chris, thoughts on AJ Brown?
Yeah, I love it. I'm actually on AJ Brown too. I took his passing yards, so I'm definitely hoping he needs the catches in order to get the yards. So nothing I could say. Ryan took a lot of my thunder with with his yards as well as the catches. So yeah, I'd be there on his receptions as well. Also, it's the Vikings defense. Like we didn't,
Yeah.
Ryan didn't mention that, but this is the Vikings defense we're talking about here. Philadelphia home opener. They're going to be turned up. It's going to be loud in there. And at the most, we could, if you're a Viking fan, you're probably looking for a shootout. You're not looking for a defensive contest, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah, I would only be able to agree with Rod there.
Did you want to expand on it because you mentioned you had AJ Brown over on his receiving yards?
Yeah, absolutely. So Rod kind of mentioned week 1, 7 catches. I What I enjoyed the most, and Rod probably mentioned this as well, I think he did, was the 10 targets, right? So 79 yards, which is right. He's picking up right where he left off at. I know Rod mentioned that as well, like them kind of figuring that out, like, oh yeah, we should probably get this guy the ball a little bit more, right? So week 1 actually made 5 games in a row that he's actually seen at least 8 targets. And 6 of his last 7 as well. And in all 6 of those games that he's had at least 8 targets, he's cleared that yards prop. Earlier when I was capping this, it was 72.5. It immediately started to move at 73.5, and I said, "Oh my God, I got to hurry up and put it in." So I placed it at 73.5, minus 110. I think those odds were on Bet365. Definitely shop around for the best number. And then I kind of alluded to it just a little bit, but Minnesota, they allowed the second most passing yards last season, 267 per game. And in my opinion, Baker Mayfield isn't the measuring stick to kind of see if it's going to revert back or if it's going to get better. So I think not Jalen Hurts going over his passing yards, but I do think that AJ Brown can get over his receiving yards. With a few more catches, hopefully a few more targets. He's at 10, and we can't ask for too many more. But especially given how they have to kind of balance that offense. But I do think this is a game where we can see AJ Brown, get 80 to 85, maybe even 90 receiving yards against that secondary in Minnesota.
Yeah, again, I mean, when we talk about number one targets for respective teams, we talk about the Justin Jeffersons of the world, the Tyreek Hills of the world. I feel like AJ Brown sometimes forgotten about. Even when he was with Tennessee and even when he came over. But I think that again, dating back to last season, we've seen what AJ Brown is capable of doing, and that's kind of carried over obviously in the course of last season. And like you mentioned, he's picked up right where he left off last season. These two teams, like we mentioned at the top of the show, Monday Night Football last season, 8 targets for AJ Brown, 5 receptions, 69 yards, right? And I think they really didn't need him, especially in that second half, just because the defense was so dominant. But that might be a different story this week, where they may, it might be a closer game, and we maybe see some points being put up in this game, especially with a total of 48 right now. So, yeah, anytime we talk about AJ Brown, he's always at the top of the list as far as wide receivers for this Philadelphia Eagles team. All right, I'm going to go over to the other side for the Vikings, and I'm going to go with the receptions prop here as well. I'm looking at TJ Hawkinson in this game. I'm going to go over 4.5 receptions in this game.
I got him
with
too,
TJ Hawkinson. Yeah, and again, this number, when it came out, it really didn't make sense to me. And I know the VIG on this has really significantly moved since we're recording right now. I think it's only going to start moving to 5.5. But I was comfortable laying the minus 130, minus 140 that I got on TJ Hawkinson. Let's go back to last season when they did acquire him from the Detroit Lions at the trade deadline last year. So he played in 11 games, including the playoffs, 10 regular season games and 1 playoff game last season for the Minnesota Vikings. He averaged, let's start with targets there. So averaged close to 10 targets per game, and he averaged 6.45 receptions per game. That average is actually down because in the last game of the regular season last year against the Bears, he only had 1 reception and 1 target. But also TJ Hawkinson, he's had at least 5 receptions and 5 receptions or more in 8 of those 11 games last season, including the playoff game last year against the New York Giants. Let's fast forward to this season, the first game of the regular season last week against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We know that Justin Jefferson is by far going to be the guy for this offense all throughout the season because he's one of the best wide receivers already in this league. But Justin Jefferson had 10 plus targets last week. The second guy on that list last week was TJ Hawkinson with 9 targets. He had 8 receptions in the first game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Also last week, the Eagles allowed 9 targets and 8 receptions to the tight end position against the Patriots last week. That was a combination of Hunter Henry and Mike Gesicki. But we know that TJ Hawkinson really doesn't have that concern with another tight end on this team. And again, I think we can make the argument that TJ Hawkinson is that second guy when it comes to those skill position, right? We know Jefferson. I think TJ Hawkinson is that second guy on this list. So also going back to last week, Hawkinson played in 75% of the snap counts last week for the Vikings against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So he's going to be on the field. He gets the targets. He has some of the best hands. And I think that, again, over this 4.5 receptions should be easy pickings here for TJ Hawkinson. So over 4.5 receptions in this game for me as my second player prop here. I know, Chris, you also agree with this one, man. Anything that you want to add there?
Yeah. First, I want to add, I'm gonna have to go first for every player prop because you guys just keep taking mine. So, no, just kidding. But no, I think you summed it up nicely. A lot of what I had in my notes, what I didn't have was a snap count, which I really enjoyed that number, 75% of snap. I mean, I knew it was out there, but I didn't know, for how long. So I love that added to the handicap. Also, just looking at you mentioned Philly's defense giving up, I think you said 9 targets and 8 receptions. And if you just think about the way that Philly plays, right? They have one of the best secondaries. They have one of the best front sevens in the game. They really try to take away your wide receivers. So check downs to tight ends, whether they're running comeback routes, in routes, slants, whatever the case might be. I'm pretty sure that the Vikings offensive coordinators and Kirk Cousins probably himself is telling TJ, hey, look, I need to make sure you're open because it's going to be some quick passes when we think about how fast Philly can get to beat you at the line of scrimmage and get back to put some pressure on that quarterback. So I like it it just kind of logically makes sense, So I took the over 4.5 as well. I got it at -132. But like you said, definitely shop around. I wish I would have seen it when it first dropped because I'm pretty sure it probably started at -120. But like you said, probably will close at 5.5, which also feels pretty comfortable in this spot, being that the game script probably says that they're playing from behind with Philly, coming out and getting the lead.
Rod, thoughts on TJ Hawkinson?
So it's funny too because I have another prop in my article that's coming out soon with TJ Hawkinson, but his is for his longest reception because I think it's over. It's 18. I'm setting the under on this one because I think a lot of these passes that he's going to get are going to be quick, around the line of scrimmage passes, and he's not one to break free for like 50, 60 yards after that. So he'll get tackled somewhere around maybe 5 yards around where he catches the ball. And if that's 5 yards, a quick 5-yard pattern, because, Cousins doesn't have enough time to throw the ball, then that means he's going to get a 10 to 12 yard catch. So he can get a lot of those, I think, is what it's going to end up happening. I think you're right. You're going to have to focus on Osborne. You're going to have to focus on Jefferson. You're going to have to focus on those receivers, right? Well, that leaves Hawkinson open in the middle of the field. So, like I said, as long as one of those catches doesn't go over 18, he can get as many as he wants.
Yep. All right, guys, before we get over to our third round of player props here, let me tell everyone about Hall of Fame bets. Win bigger by betting smarter this NFL season with Hall of Fame bets, the sports betting analytics platform from parlays, player props, and game lines. Research every NFL, NBA, MLB, and soccer bet with historical stats and data. Enter any parlay idea into Hall of Fame bets, revolutionary parlay optimizer tool to get hit rates broken down by leg, as well as an expected probability for the entire parlay. So sort all players by hit rate for any bet to learn which players are hot and which picks have value. Stop betting in the dark. Join over 30,000 users researching with Hall of Fame bets to craft more intelligent, data-driven parlays. Download the Hall of Fame bets app or visit hofbets.com and use promo code SGPN to get 50% off your first month today. Start researching, start winning with Hall of Fame bets. We're also brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Underdog has a way to play alongside your favorite football team all season long. With their fantasy pick'em game, you pick between 2 to 5 players, select whether they'll go higher or lower on one of their stats, then do what you usually do, spending your Sundays doing. That's watching the game. You can win up to 20 times your money in a single game by going 5 to 5. It's a fantasy game, but you can win real money. So watch along, make your picks, and maybe make a little cash over on Underdog's mobile app or their website, underdogfantasy.com. And when you sign up with promo code SGPN, Underdog will double your first deposit of up to $100. Again, that's Underdog Fantasy using promo code SGPN. All right, gentlemen, let's get over to our third round of player props. Chris, why don't you lead us off this time? Since we're stealing all your props.
That was the third one, right? Yeah, that was the third one.
That
I
was
got
3?
Cousins over. That was 3 for me. I got Cousins over interception.
Okay.
Hawkinson, like you said, over
And then
four and a
AJ
half.
Brown
And
as
then
well.
I talked about AJ Brown as well.
All right, Rod, you got 2 or 3 and 2?
No, I only had 2.
Okay, yeah, why don't you lead us off then?
Wow, we're already rescue, aren't we? I'm going to show us the kicker some love. I'm going to take Jake Elliott. His kicking points are set at 7.5. His over is at plus 100. I'm rolling with the over. He had 13 kicking points last week. I mean, this is, of course, an Eagles team that can score points. He kicked a ton of field goals last week. That was the main source of the Eagles offense last week was his field goals. So I like that. So I like I said, 13 points against the Patriots last week. He had 6 games last season over this prop, including 2 of 3 playoff games. We know he's got a big leg. The Vikings gave up at least 8 points to kickers 10 times last season, so they're prone to give up some big kicker points, and that's really because a lot of the teams, their drives were stalling and they had to kick field goals. So they had a pretty decent defense to keep teams out of the end zone. So field goals were the way. And then in some cases, they were just kicking a lot of extra points in that one as well. And last week, the Vikings did allow Chase McLaughlin, who's that, to reach 8 points last week. So, a combination of everything. Like I said, this is definitely a situation in which I think Jake Elliott can get there. He's actually done this once before against the Vikings. Granted, it did come in 2019, but he still managed to get 8 points against them. And he's only faced them 3 times. So once in 3 times, that's still pretty good odds that he can get it done again, especially after kicking 4 field goals last week. I think we're in for another at least 8-point performance out of Jake Elliott.
Yeah, I mean, when we talk about kickers, I think he's one of the more reliable ones throughout the league, right? I know there's for some teams there's a big turnover as far as when we talk about kickers, but Jake Elliott has really been consistent, especially for this Eagles offense. I mean, sometimes when you just blink an eye, they're already within field goal range, just how dynamic their offense is. And again, if they're not able to convert on a third down, you have a reliable kicker that Nick Sirianni can, trot out there to kick that field goal, and more times than not, he's going to make it. So, last week, like you mentioned, he had 13 kicking points against, the Patriots. I think this might, I'm not saying it'll be a field goal fest here, but I think when the opportunity presents itself to put up points, I think that, Nick Sirianni, that offense will get there to do that. And again, this offense they're very efficient in the red zone as well. They come up with a lot of creative plays. And again, that gets you extra points as well from Jake Elliott. So, I definitely can get behind this for sure. All right, for my last player prop here before we get into our touchdown props, I was looking for receptions for Alexander Madison, but I couldn't find one. So I'll pivot to his receiving yards in this game, and that's currently sitting at 16.5 for this game. And it kind of goes back to what Rod mentioned about the Eagles defense, is that they're going to tee off on this offensive line, I believe, because that front seven is, I think, by far, I don't want to say the best because I think San Francisco has the best defense, but I think they're top 3 for sure, regardless. I mean, they have some, defensive talent on that front seven. So I think what's going to happen, I think there's something similar to what we saw on the Monday Night Football game with Josh Allen and James Cook, is that if that defensive pressure is going to get to the quarterback of Kirk Cousins, he's going to have to find guys to dump it off to, right? We talked about TJ Hawkinson, and I think Alexander Madison might be a guy as well. I mean, last week he did have 4 targets. He did have 3 receptions, but it only translated to 10 yards. I think that he can, again, if Cousins is able to find him when that pressure does get to him, I think he can definitely get to this number. I think the targets are going to be there for him. And when we talk about, screen passes that work well for a lot of these teams, we saw a lot of success that the Vikings had, especially when they had Dalvin Cook. Obviously, I'm saying Alexander Madison is Dalvin Cook, but they believe in him, and they released Dalvin Cook for a reason because they believe in Alexander Madison's ability. So I think this is an opportunity for him in this game to break one out and get over this number. It's not a big number at 16.5 at minus 110. I'll definitely take a chance here because I do believe that this pass rush for the Eagles are going to be able to get to Kirk Cousins. That's just going to enable him to either, dump it down to guys like TJ Hawkinson we talked about, or find somebody out of the backfield who's going to be Alexander Madison. So over 16.5 receiving yards for me for Alexander Madison in this game here. Chris, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I like it. I like that the number isn't too high. This kind of reminds me a little bit about what I think it was Rod that talked about running back last week when we were talking about the Chiefs and the Lions. McKinnon,
Yeah.
like it feels like a very similar scenario. And McKinnon should have went over it. I know he didn't go over in that scenario, but this to me, kind of feels like that situation. Like you said, it's going to be a bunch of dump downs and one. I know Rod mentioned this last week, but like 16.5 is such a low number that it could all come on one play, right? Like, so that wouldn't surprise me either, especially if they're playing from behind, which we kind of anticipate that. Well, I know at least I anticipate the green script is Philly, comes out and jumps out to a nice sizable lead like they typically do in the first half, and then you just see Kirk Cousins, passing the ball left and right. I was actually looking for his pass attempts, but I couldn't. I don't think those
for Kirk
numbers
Cousins, right?
that either. Yeah,
yeah, I couldn't find it. That was the first one I looked for this morning, but I couldn't find it. Rod, any thoughts on Alexander Madison?
It's funny because I was just looking at I didn't get there's no odds on it either, but I mean, 44 times he threw the ball last week. Like they're going to throw the ball. So some of those are going to go Madsen's way. I highly anticipate him being able to get at least 17 yards on this.
All right, let's get into our touchdown props here before we get to best bets. Chris, you want to lead us off for your touchdown prop bets for this game?
Yeah, so it's a couple of them that I like, and it's a couple guys that we kind of already talked about. First would be Mr. AJ Brown. Have just one touchdown for him is plus 114 is the best odds I found over on Caesars, and it's for all of the reasons that we kind of mentioned. I know Rod liked his receptions. I love his actual receiving yards as well. I love both, and the targets are there, right? That's why you like the yards. That's why you like the receptions, because this guy is getting double-digit targets, and it feels like the chemistry and the camaraderie that he felt with Jalen Hurts last year has translated, into just kind of carried over this year. And we're talking about a Vikings defense that gives up, if Baker Mayfield can throw for 2 touchdowns, and then I'm pretty, and his, wide receiver 1 catches 1, and Mike Evans, who I took the under on, so I need him to slow down. Then I think that AJ Brown could definitely snag one here as well, And then I also like TJ, just because I think that the closer the Vikings get to the red zone, the more that they'll probably try to utilize him, the more that they'll probably try to utilize the middle of the field, and I think they're going to make it hard for. I know we talked about KJ Osborne, and we talked about. I don't think we mentioned Addison at all, but Addison being out there as well, and Jefferson. So I like Hockenson because I think he's going to be in the middle of the field. I'm pretty sure Kirk Cousins already has his eye, probably already looking out for him. And they probably have some kind of system scheme play that they'll use for TJ. So if he's going to be out there for 75% of the snaps, like you said, and big body that can catch the ball, wide catch radius, I like TJ to be able to score in this game as well. So if I had to play 2, it would be AJ Brown, and it also would be TJ Hockenson to go just to score a touchdown.
Yeah, we didn't mention Jordan Addison yet, but that was the one guy I was looking at for a touchdown, anytime touchdown this game. That you can find that anywhere from plus 245 to around plus 260 for this game. He did have one last week against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And again, when we talk about the attention that Justin Jefferson is going to get on a weekly basis, that's going to open up opportunities for guys like TJ Hockenson, Jordan Addison. And again, last week he was a beneficiary of a touchdown pass from Kirk Cousins. I think this week that, again, if they're going to have to score points to keep up with this Eagles offense, and especially them being at home where they're very, very comfortable, don't want anything a repeat of what happened last season, this game on Monday Night Football, but you're going to have to score more than 14, 17, 20 points possibly for you to win this game if you're the Vikings. I know they're a 7-point underdog in this game, but you're going to have to keep up with the scoring for this offense. So I think Jordan Addison can be a beneficiary. And also I doubled down on TJ Hockenson as well. Very reliable, big target in the red zone, 6'5", 240 pounds. Can't ask for much more when you talk about red zone targets. So those are the 2 guys I was targeting, at least on the Minnesota Vikings side in this game here. Rod, what do you got for your touchdown prop bets?
Okay, well, I got another Viking then. I'm going to take Alexander Madison as anytime TD at plus 155. I don't know that they're going to enjoy a lot of red zone. I mean, they didn't last week. Maybe they find the red zone this week, but the Vikings didn't necessarily get very close in very many of their drives. So they had to rely on sort of the longer ones. But if they do, and this time, hopefully the Eagles allow the Vikings to get in the red zone, then I'm okay with Mattson. And look, it can even come on a reception, right? We're talking about his receiving yards too. It could come on one of those screen passes. He breaks it loose and gets into the end zone. He did last week. I mean, that's kind of what we're banging on as well. You think of the players that can score for Minnesota. There's a lot of them, right? I mean, there's Jefferson, there's Osborne, there's Addison, there's Hawkinson, there's Mattson. So like taking and sprinkling any one of these guys to get in the end zone is probably not a bad idea. Especially all of them being at plus money. I know plus 155 is not entirely sexy, but if it cashes, then you're not going to be too mad about it.
Yep, I agree. All right, guys, let's wrap up the show with our best bets for this Thursday night football game. Rod, why don't you lead us off?
I'm going to take AJ. I'm going to take his receptions over 5.5. God, let us please turn some stuff around. Let AJ catch at least 6 passes in this game. I need this, man. I need the turnaround.
Chris, best bet.
Let's go Kirk Cousins. I like Mr. Kirk to throw at least one INT. I actually absolutely love this play, actually, So I talked about it in depth. I know you liked it as well, and Rod did as well. But I just think hostile environment. When we did the season long previews and we talked about the NFC, specifically Vikings, Packers, Bears, we talked about the Vikings having a tougher road this year, right? Like last year, they were able to kind of pass the ball all over the place, and defense wasn't that great. And this year, it's going to be a little bit tougher. So maybe I should have even looked at Kirk Cousins' season-long interception total to go over, because he's already starting off on the wrong foot, and it gets no easier for him this week. Like I said, Philly back at home. Well, not back at home. First game. So it's gonna be turned up in Philadelphia, and I think that they at least pick him off at least one time. So give me Mr. Kirk Cousins to go over a half of at least one interception at minus 115.
Love it. All right, I will take TJ Hawkinson over on his receptions, man. I know this number is getting juiced up. I see up to minus 160s now. I'm comfortable with the 5.5 as well. You probably get that at plus money, but I still see 4.5s minus 140s out there. I'm willing to lay the vig here on this bet here, but like we mentioned it last week, the Patriots tight ends on 9 targets were able to collect 8 receptions against this Eagles defense. Talked about how Hawkinson has been a important part of this offense ever since he got traded from the Detroit Lions over to the Minnesota Vikings. Did it several times last season. He's already done it this season in the first game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and I think that's going to continue in this Thursday night football game. And again, we talked about if that pass rush is going to get to Kirk Cousins, he's going to need those check down guys. That's going to be Hawkinson. That's going to be Alexander Mattison in this game. So I'm willing to lay the vig here with TJ Hawkinson over 4.5 receptions in this game against the Philadelphia Eagles. All right, boys. Look, last week, 0-9. We're going to address it. We'll get some hate for it, but it's a long season. Hopefully we can turn around this week for Thursday night football. Anything else we need to mention, Rod, before we get out of here, my friend?
No, sir. Just thank God my co-host killed it in NASCAR last week, because that made up for a whole lot of NFL failure on my part. But yeah, man, just follow me over there. Follow me on Twitter at RJ Villagomez. Listen to the NASCAR Gambling Podcast if you love money, because Cody's printing a lot of it out there. So definitely something you want to get down on.
Yeah, so I messaged Rod this past Sunday, because number one, I do my best to tune into their pods, but there's so many hours in the week. And I asked him, hey, who do I put my money down on for this race? Because I don't know a lick about NASCAR, and I just like a true degen, I needed some action. So he messages me back. He's like, well, put some money down on Tyler Reddick and put some down on Danny Hamlin. Long story short, what ends up happening is not only did Tyler Reddick win this race, Danny Hamlin came in second in this race. So it was like, well, I don't want to say a no sweat. Rod could probably expand on that for me if it was a no sweat or not, but those guys ended up going 1 and 2 for me. And those two guys were right around 7-1, a little above 7-1. And I put a decent amount on that. So I've put some pain in the the pockets of the books from Rod and Cody of the NASCAR Gambling Podcast. But yeah, Rod, was that a sweat-free win for us, or was there some drama that led to us getting that W?
I mean, look, it would have been Hamlin either way if the caution hadn't come out late anyway. So yeah, by the end of that race,
Okay.
it was a no sweat. So the fact that Tyler Reddick jumped in front of Hamlin, that only hurt my feelings because I picked Hamlin and Cody picked Reddick. So that was the only person that was sweating was me at the end because it was either my outright or his. So his won.
Well, I mean, look, that's why the NASCAR Gambling Podcast is the best one out there. They're picking the first place winner and the second place winner. So, yeah, make sure you guys tune in, not only for NASCAR, but F1. The guys are absolutely crushing it, as they have been ever since the pods even started. I know there are about 100 some odd episodes. These guys are crushing it every single weekend. Chris, anything else we need to mention, my friend, before we get out of here?
That sounds like a win-win to me. Picking number
It
one
is.
and number two. So that for the viewers, definitely check out Rod on the NASCAR pod for sure. But yeah, nothing else to mention, man. Like you said, it'll be a bounce back week for us. I'm gonna go ahead and put that in the atmosphere, put the good juju and in the works for us. We'll bounce back and cash hopefully all of these tickets. But if not, more than we'll cash more than we lose this week, and we'll bounce back. So yeah, that's all I got. Follow my work over on Twitter at Crispy Captain, 2 P's, 2 N's. And as always, man, it's a pleasure doing the show with you guys. It's gonna be a bigger pleasure when we actually give out some winners. So I'll be looking forward to saying, it's even a bigger pleasure next time.
I'll end with saying this. I'm not saying this was the reason Travis Kelce was out last week, but the rumors are circulating that him and Taylor Swift may be a thing. They've been hanging out. Just maybe just keep an eye on Travis Kelce this season because he is hanging out with one of the biggest stars in the music industry, if not the biggest. I think my wife will appreciate that because she's at the top of the Swifties fan club there. So maybe Travis Kelce and Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift might be a thing now. But all right, that is going to do it, gentlemen. Make sure to follow Rod on Twitter at RJ Villagomez. You can follow Chris on Twitter at Crispy Captain with 2 P's and 2 N's. Follow me on Twitter at SportsNerd824. And also do us a favor, if you haven't already, leave us a rating and review for the Propcast. And also make sure to subscribe to the NFL Gambling Podcast YouTube channel there. We'll drop our live feeds when we can, when we talk about NFL player props on the NFL Gambling Podcast feed. All right, we'll be back later this week to talk about Week 2 Sunday player props. Fingers crossed, it's only up and up and up here for us. But till then, good luck with your bets. Let's break these books off and let it ride.